You can tell the summer transfer windows around the corner because the absolute tsunami of media bullshit has already started. It's the same stuff every year. Isak to Arsenal, Gordin to Liverpool, Bruno to City, Tonali to whichever Italian team fancies him that week. And all it really is every time is just really, really lazy, crappy journalism. So instead of the usual bullshit perspective from London-based journalists who must have never watched a Newcastle game in their life, I'm going to give you today the take of someone who does watch Newcastle games, follows all the news that comes in and out of the club, and why I'm pretty certain none of them players are going anywhere in the summer. So I'm going to look at each one of these linked players and why I'm pretty certain they're not moving. I'm going to look at some of the stories that have linked them away and just why they're just complete and utter bullshit. And then I'm sure even once I've gone through them, for many of the opposition fans that feel like they're entitled to our players, I'm sure that still won't be enough for them. So then I'm going to go further into detail why also these deals just don't make any sense from the club's perspectives either. Because for any of the points I'm about to make, none of them on their own mean that a player won't leave. But by the end of the video, I'm pretty sure you will be convinced that the whole package together means that we are not selling any of our players. Before we get into it, big thank you to everyone that's been supporting the channel. I'm not going to do a big long rant this week because I can't do this every week, but massive thank you. I'm as grateful as ever. Keep on supporting the channel. Anything you can do to make the channel grow, massively appreciated. But we'll get started straight away on the players that are linked away. So let's start with Gordon, because if anyone was to leave over the next 5 years, I think Gordon could be the one that would leave over the next 5 years. But this summer, I just don't think it's happening. I've been a Newcastle fan now for well over 20 years, and in that time I've seen a lot of people use the club as a stepping stone, and for most of them 20 years that's all we could ever really hope to be, a platform for top talent to showcase themselves and then move on to a better club. That's where we were. And the thing is, we're not that club anymore. We don't have to hope to be a stepping stone at best. We want to take these quality players and have them be a part of us challenging for things. And when you watch Gordon this season, there's been an ever so slight shift in his attitude towards the fans and towards the way he plays on the pitch. And it's nothing to write home about, really. It's nothing, you know, massively shocking, anything to kick off about. But it's enough that you've noticed the performances on the pitch and you've noticed the odd things that he said in interviews here and there. Like at the start of the season when he said that all the media talk and the links away to Liverpool had kind of affected his game a little bit and got in the players' heads. Obviously, they're only human, and I'm not criticising Anthony Gordon in any way. If anything, I actually really respect the honesty from Gordon, but it does just sort of say to me a little bit that it is something that he has considered, it does play on his mind, and I mean, that's kind of fine. It's his boyhood club. But I'm just saying why, as a fan who's seen many players use this club as a stepping stone, I'm seeing ever so slight signs that he could be, and why that link might have a remote element of truth in it in 3, 4, 5 years' time. But right now, this summer, there's absolutely no chance I think he's going. He's a key player, and we're looking to push on. We're not in the business of selling key players whilst we're trying to grow. So then we'll move on to Bruno. The fact that anyone thinks he's leaving the club is absolutely mind-blowing. He's been linked to Man City pretty much every year, and I get it, Pep Guardiola likes him as a player. And to any player that's been complimented by Pep Guardiola, I'm sure that's a massive positive. I'm sure it feels great. But the issue here is Bruno loves Newcastle United. He's basically a Geordie. There seems to be something very intertwined with Brazilian and Geordie culture where he just really gets what the club is about. He wants to be remembered in the way that Shearer is remembered at this club. Why in any world, I know he's won a trophy for us now, but why in any world would he then consider leaving if that's what he wants from this club? He wants to go down as a legend. He wants to have a statue outside St James's Park. Of all the players linked away here, he's the least likely to go anywhere. He's the club captain. He's said himself on multiple occasions his kids are Geordies. The man was crying in his post-match interview after the Carabao Cup final. He gives more raw passion and emotion to the club and to the fans than I've seen some Geordies who've played for Newcastle before give to the club and to the fans. If anyone is leaving Newcastle this summer, it is definitely not Bruno. Then we'll move on to Tonali. This one is probably the stupidest of all of them. How people are even writing articles about this blows my fucking mind. I mean, let's just take a quick look at some of these articles, right? So here we've got Tonali linked going away to Juventus for 70 million euros. We signed him for 70 million euros. Why the fuck would we sign a player for 70 million euros, have him go out on a gambling ban for a year, stick with him the whole time, have him just come back to the club, just start playing, just start showing his worth, giving back to the fans, and then sell him again for another 70 million euros? Which fucking idiot? Lorenzo Bertoni. Just quit your job. You have no idea what you're doing. It blows my mind how anyone could go through a sports journalism degree, pass the sports journalism degree, get themselves some work experience, go through, write in a CV, get themselves on LinkedIn, apply for a load of jobs, make it through the application process. Bearing in mind, most jobs on LinkedIn have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 applicants for jobs like this. How they can get through all of that and then be spouting this absolute verbal diarrhea on the internet. It takes all of about 30 seconds of thinking about the situation before writing that article to be like, oh yeah, probably isn't ever going to happen, is it? And I mean, I know why they do it. It's just bullshit for clicks. That's all it is. But fuck me. Do better. Like, I've only clicked on this for the purpose of showing you guys how fucking useless this journalism is. Most of the time when I see these articles, I just don't even bother clicking them because I just know it's just going to be full of crap. It's a waste of my time. But unfortunately, plenty of fans just keep on clicking on it, reading it, and even believing it. So they're just going to keep on posting it. So yeah, Tonali's going absolutely fucking nowhere. And that brings us on to, last but not least, Isak. Now again, similar sort of stories going on with Isak, or at least it started that way. People writing articles about how we were going to sell Isak for 80 million, 90 million. Like, what? We signed him for 63. Do you really think when we were taking a gamble on him for 63 million, we would then have that gamble pay off in the most extreme way possible? He's now proven to be one of the best strikers in the world. We would then go on to sell him for only about 25 million profit. I don't know how much experience these journalists have with gambling, but I'm telling you now, as someone who does gamble quite a bit, if I was taking a 63 million pound gamble on something like whether or not a striker is going to hit in the Premier League, I'd want to at least double my money if it worked. But anyway, that seems to have sort of shifted recently, and people are now quoting more like the realistic value that you'd end up having to pay for Isak, which is around 150 million, which, let's be honest, all the clubs that are linked with him, Liverpool, Arsenal, Barcelona, none of them can afford that. Not on one player they can't anyway. But not only that, all the things I mentioned earlier about players who you can see when they're starting to use the club as a stepping stone, Isak has gone the opposite way to Gordon. Isak, when he first signed for the club, I did say to a few friends, I was like, I can't see him staying around that long. His attitude in interviews and things like that, it was very cold. It was very like he was here for, he meant business. And, you know, he was very much a machine, and he is still a machine. Very cold. He's able to remove all emotion out of situations, and you probably need that to be the top level player that he is. But over this last season, he started to show a little bit more to the fans. He's starting to open up and be a bit more endearing.
I'd eat war, kid.
Kind of the opposite way around. Instead of starting off very endearing towards the fans to get them on your side and then slowly petering off and then going away, as a lot of stepping stone players have in the past, he's gone very much the other way. He's gone very much as if it maybe was his introduction to the Premier League in the first place, but now he's looking very much like he's starting to consider what's actually happening at Newcastle, and maybe there isn't really a better option for him, because ultimately whenever you do go to a new club, it is always a gamble. You might not hit the ground running at that new club, and he's potentially thinking, where I'm at now is working. I'm playing the best football of my life, and this club is going places. They are going to try challenge for the title. They are going to try challenge for the Champions League. I don't doubt that he wants to see how the rest of this season plays out before he signs a new contract, but Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the head of the PIF, the owner of the club, has called a meeting apparently with the head chiefs at the club to tell them to not accept any bids for Isak this summer. So it seems like the club are going to do pretty much anything within their power to make sure that we're in a position next season where Isak wants to be part of what we're doing next season, whether that be making signings, making sure we get Champions League, all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, regardless of all of them points there, the main thing is, for all the fans of Arsenal, Barcelona, Liverpool, all these teams that seem to think it's guaranteed that Isak is going to them in the summer, the overlying point is you can't afford Isak. The entitlement of some of these traditionally big six clubs is just fucking mental. The fact that half of our team is linked away kind of just says that maybe it's just a good team here and we maybe just want to stay here. Just a thought. A lot of the time, I think it might just be the London-based journalists just trying to disrupt the Newcastle players and the Newcastle squad because they just don't like us upsetting the established order. To which I think we should just start fighting fire with fire. Get all the northeast-based journalists to just start linking Saka to Newcastle. His dad's a Newcastle fan after all. Of course he wants to come here. We need a right winger. Whether he'd get in over Jacob Murphy on current form, who knows? Jacob Murphy for Ballon d'Or. And I'm sure it's not just us that deal with it as well. I'm sure there's plenty of Villa fans, Forest fans, Brighton fans. They're all dealing with the same kind of crap from the media and the supporters of the big six clubs. And I think ultimately they're just really not happy there's been a massive changing of the guard. Man United and Spurs are just long gone at this point. Chelsea look like they could fall right out of the conversation over the next few weeks. Man City have had a horrible season by their standards, and for all we know, they could be in the Championship next season. But ultimately, for a lot of these teams and the fans that were making the argument that our players were going to jump ship, it came down to, were Newcastle going to get Champions League? At this point, of the teams that are looking like they might or might not, we're probably the favourites. So that whole avenue of stealing our players has gone right out the fucking window. And then the last thing that everyone likes to brandish at Newcastle is the Newcastle tax. Now, generally, this works the way of when we're going to buy players, in the sense of, if we want a player, someone sees Newcastle coming for them, they're like, ooh, Newcastle are the richest club in the world, therefore we can charge more for them. We've kind of already proven that isn't the case. Because of PSR, we can't just spend all our money. But now that we're out of that PSR hole, and we now don't need to sell and we're looking to actually invest in summer, at this point the Newcastle tax works both ways. Yes, maybe clubs think that they can extort us for more of our money when we're going to buy players, but equally when we're going to sell players, it then works the other way around. Yes, we have the richest owners in the world. So in what world are we then going to be looking to completely derail our plans, selling players like Isak for a quick 20 million profit? To these owners, 20 million falls out of their back pocket. It's down the back of the couch. So this is where it works the other way around. If you want to tempt us to slightly derail our plans, you're going to have to throw money at this situation that we just can't turn down. Money that even the richest owners in the world can't turn down. And a quick 20 million on the potentially best striker in the world, that isn't money you can't turn down. That's quite easy to turn down. Even probably a double up on Isak's price at this point to the richest owners in the world is probably quite easy to turn down. And a double up would be 130, 140 million. No one can afford more than that. The position of strength we've started to put ourselves into now, this is where the Newcastle tax works the other way around. So next time one of your mates sends you a video saying that Bruno's off to City, Isak's off to Arsenal, just send them this video. Don't even argue with them, just send them this. And hopefully this does a good enough job of explaining why we're not here to be picked apart, and we're here to build something to go on and challenge for titles, for Champions Leagues further down the line. And obviously I'm not a journalist, I'm just a fan, so I don't have any insider information on any of this kind of stuff. This is just my perspective, having seen the behavioural patterns of players who do want to use the club as a stepping stone, over 20 years of watching this club being used as a stepping stone. And off what I'm seeing, I'm happy to put my neck out on the line and say none of these players are going over the summer. If they do go, come back here, let me know how much of an idiot I've made of myself, by all means. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure some players could end up leaving, but the likes of Tonali, Bruno, Botman, Joe Linton, Gordon, Isak, none of these star players are going to leave. And let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think we're favourites for Champions League? Do you think if we do get Champions League, that'll be enough to keep the players that I've just mentioned? Do you think even without Champions League, we could keep them anyway? Is there any of them players that you do think could go? What's your take on my read on the Gordon situation? Do you think I'm maybe onto something, that his head maybe is starting to turn? I don't think he's going to go soon, but I think he could go over maybe the next 3 or 4 years, probably to Liverpool, because it is his boyhood club. I do just want to hear genuinely what most Newcastle fans' responses are to all this kind of media, because it's been coming out now for a good 3 years probably, just constantly, every summer, every transfer window, just the same old bullshit. And every year it's the same story, none of them leave. And I just want to know what the take is from other Newcastle fans, because it doesn't really seem to be overall affecting us. It maybe affected Gordon a little bit at the start of the season, as he mentioned in the interview and as I said earlier on, but overall we haven't been able to really sign anyone for the past 2 or 3 years, and we're still up there competing, so it's not really working. So is there a point where the journalists are eventually just going to give up and be like, what's the point, it's not working? And maybe they'll eventually move on to actually putting some effort into researching for their stories. Probably unlikely, but who knows, maybe. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please drop a like, comment, anything else that helps the channel grow, share it with your friends, all that kind of stuff, and I'll see you on the next one.